We're ready for the start. They're off.
Welcome in, everybody. It's official. Jeremy Plonk with Jeff Siegel. I'm seated in a chair, but Jeff Siegel celebrated a birthday, and his Bruins gone 6-0, so he's merely floating in his home office right now, not even seated. Jeff, welcome in.
There's nothing better right now. I mean, this is for me with Breeders' Cup coming up, and the preps and college football for the first time in, I don't know, 20 years were actually relevant. So it's good times for me anyway. Let's keep it going. And we saw some great racing last week. We're going to see some great racing at Keeneland next month early, and we've got a lot of ground to cover because some significant performances and some of the divisions may be tilting one way or the other, and we're going to go over it now and see if we can come up with some information that the public can use.
If you're a regular to the show, you know the format. If you're new, welcome in. Glad to have you as we ramp up towards the Breeders' Cup. Jeff and I each week take on 5 topics from the previous week, some race replays, some commentary, and what it might mean moving forward. So without further ado, let's get into the big board this week. Our first of 5 topics talks about Cave Rock Superstar.
They're coming to the quarter pole behind Cave Rock, who's just been cruising along. Cave Rock turns for home with a 2-length lead. National Treasure running a good race on the outside second. He takes up the chase with a furlong left to go. Cave Rock by 3. National Treasure, Hijazi, and Gandolfini. It's all Bob Baffert in the American Pharoah, but Cave Rock is at the head of the class. And Cave Rock, ultra impressive, stretching out successfully to win by almost 6 lengths in the American Pharoah. National Treasure, Hijazi, and Gandolfini.
Those 4 names you heard from Frank Miramati, a Bob Baffert sweep of the Superfecta for his 10th win in the American Pharoah, Jeff. And Cave Rock may be as good as any of the 2-year-olds that he's put forth in quite some time.
I agree. If you go back and look at the list of horses, the 2-year-olds that Bob has won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile with, and he's had 5 of them.
Right.
I think this colt is as good as any of them, and maybe even better. You go back to this colt reminds me a little bit of Vindication a little bit back in 2002. He was undefeated. Right. Similar type of colt by Seattle Slew, who got hurt and never made the Triple Crown. But the other colts that he's won with Midshipman in 08 and New Year's Day in 13, game winner in 18 in Corniche last year, I really do think this colt is extraordinary, and his numbers would indicate that. That race earned a 104 buyer speed figure. That's terrific for a 2-year-old. Not his first triple-digit buyer number, though. He earned a triple-digit buyer when he broke his maiden. And, of course, his romp in the Del Mar Futurity was outstanding as well. And the first 4 finishers, all Bafferts, as you mentioned, and they're all good colts. I mean, he was leaving horses like National Treasure, Hijazi. That was a $3.3 million Bernardini colt. Gandolfini was a smart debut winner. Those horses are good colts, and they were made to look ordinary behind Cave Rock, who is really, really good. That's a dead racetrack he ran over when he ran a mile on a 16th and 143 flat. It was something like almost 3 seconds faster than the fillies ran. So Cave Rock's for real, and he is going to be a legitimate short price favorite, even though there's a good colt in the East as well. I think the 2-year-olds, at least at the top, are really, really strong this year.
You know, we talk about the Baffert factor, right? He's coming off the ban in the Kentucky Derby, the suspensions. It's a little bit of a tough defense that they made in court that the suspension was going to ruin his career. I mean, the 1, 2, 3, 4 finishers in this race, Jeff, cost $5,070 combined. They were all $500,000 and up of the $3.5 million horse. $5,070, the purchase price of the top 4 finishers in this race. I think 3 of them by different owners, and 2 of them from that massive Matacat SF Stables Starlight Group, that seem to be buying everything up. So the thought that Baffert has lost clients and Baffert has lost the ability to get big horses, that is not true. His 2-year-old crop is rolling. There was a time when he was winning Triple Crown races with the Real Quiets and the Silver Charms at, $17,000, $19,000 purchase prices. But if you want to make the argument Baffert gets all the good horses of late, there's something to that. Not all the good horses, but he gets a lot of the good ones. And again, when the 4 horses in this race cost $5,070 between them, he's got the stock. That's
I'll tell you,
the bottom line.
I'll tell you this, Jeremy, and I talked to Bob recently. The group that he bought this year, recently, last month at Keeneland, and whatever else he's going to end up with, is, in his opinion, the best of a group that he's ever had. It's like a top number 1 recruiting class, right? Yeah. And he, as I understand it, he's still not eligible to run a horse in the Kentucky Derby next year, but the following year I think he is. And this group went to town last month, and if you think it's dominant now, just wait till 2024, I guess it would be. That's going to be special. But Cave Rock, very fast colt, legitimate colt by Arrogate. You wouldn't expect Arrogate to get this kind of a horse because Arrogate himself was a late developer and not a speed horse. But Cave Rock is fast. He's good. And he is going to be, as I mentioned, a short price favorite. And then we'll see how far he can continue on. And then what happens again, like last year, what's going to happen next winter when they start talking Derby and you can't get Bob Baffert to Kentucky yet. So it'll be funny to see what future holds for Cave Rock.
This might be Baffert's best 2-year-old since American Pharaoh, and before that, maybe going all the way back to Roman Ruler in terms of being brilliant and spectacular at 2 like this. Like you mentioned, his horses that won the Juvenile haven't necessarily carried those qualities. They won the hardware, but they weren't, the game winners, Corniche, New Year's Day. They weren't just like brilliant. And this horse looks brilliant. He looks like a Roman Ruler who would go on to win a Haskell at age 3 and narrowly missing the Travers as well. There's some ability there. And of course, American Pharaoh. The one thing that Cave Rock's got on those 2 is he hasn't lost. American Pharaoh lost the debut. Roman Ruler did lose in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile after winning the same race that we just saw Cave Rock win. So Cave Rock's got the leg up maybe on his stable predecessors, but will he have a leg up, Jeff, on Forte? He and Loggins really threw it down on Saturday in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland on the same track at the same distance that they'll run the Juvenile. Let's go back and take a look at that one from Lexington.
Loggins is the leader against the rail, has the lead a half length. Bourbon Bash is second by a length, just over a quarter mile to go. Newgate third, Frosted Departure is fourth. Here's Forte. Now Forte is going to have to swing toward the outside from the 5th position, picks up a couple of spots, has to go wider still to the top of the short stretch. Here's Forte coming after Loggins. Newgate is now third. They turn for home in the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Forte striding forward to challenge Loggins into the final furlong, and Forte is up to take the lead. Loggins is fighting on toward the inside, but second. Forte leads at a half length. Loggins is still there toward the inside. Look at these 2 juveniles going at it. Loggins and Forte and Loggins, and it is Forte in the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity for Iran Ortiz Jr. What a stretch battle.
Jeff, a similar feel there to Flanders and Serena Song back in the 94 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies at Churchill. These 2 were really going at it. The one thing is, when you look at the clock here, it was stirring to watch, but it was slow on the dial. I mean, they came home the last quarter mile in 26:54, and that's after a third quarter that already was 25 and change. So last 2 quarters of this race were slow. It was exciting to watch. Are they enough to make you change your opinion on Cave Rock at all?
No, I checked the buyer number, which is just one small, tool that I would use to try to compare 2 races. And the buyer number of 92, which was, by the way, the same buyer number that Forte earned in the Hopeful when he won that race. But that's 12 points below what Cave Rock earned, and that's a significant difference. While I do like Forte and Loggins, I think they're really good colts, and they were almost 7 clear of the others, and there were some decent, promising colts behind them. Right. even Forte and Loggins, even though they left the others far behind, as you mentioned, they didn't finish out all that fast. Forte made the lead and got through on the inside from this very favorable inside draw. Ran very well for a second-time starter. Forte kind of verified his win in the hopeful, a race that I kind of questioned because he won over a sloppy track with kind of a setup there. And I think they're both good colts. But all this tells me really is that the Cave Rock is extraordinary, because I think these colts are decent, if not better. But they're not even in the same, area code right now as Baffert's colt. And I think the betting will reflect that on Breeders' Cup Day.
And this is a taxing race, right? I mean, a field of 14. They went hard at it for a quarter mile at the end. There was a lot here, and that's not necessarily what you want as a springboard forward to the Breeders' Cup, and especially for a horse like Loggins with only one race under his belt. To get in a throwdown like this in the second career start, you really want to watch the works for Loggins coming out of this race towards the Breeders' Cup and see how he responds. This is a big one to watch on the work tab, and Forte as well, because now he's had the race in the slop. Now he's had this hard knocker here at Keeneland. How does he bounce back from it? This might have been too much for a prep for these top two in here, whereas you saw it was kind of a canter for Cave Rock, and he got what he needed there. And if he improves, they're running for second the way it looks to me.
See, if I own Loggins, I wouldn't run him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I would say I got a Go Sapper colt. He's a nice colt. He's had two races that were close together. I don't need this race. I could either put him away for the winner or bring him back. It can in the Kentucky Jockey Club,
right,
or because this is going to be a 3-year-old. Go Sappers generally get better with age, as he did. I don't need to be running against a horse like Cave Rock. Now, if it was a really weak race, and we've seen him, like for example last year, you might say, okay, well maybe he can still win it, but you're not going to go out and try to beat Cave Rock. I mean, this colt's got a future ahead of him. It's not, the racing for him doesn't end in a month. I mean, let's build him up and make a 3-year-old out of him. That's what I would do. Now,
well, and you remember too, last year they added the Gun Runner Stakes in December on that fairground schedule. So there's a race even in December before the Lecomte in January. Right. Brad Cox is obviously going to have his best 3-year-olds every year at fairgrounds, and send some to Oaklawn as well. Right. So they could wait for the Gun Runner in December and build up. And that's what Epicenter did, running throughout that entire schedule last year, and it was successful for him. So I kind of agree with you there. If I had Loggins, I would be not looking at the Breeders' Cup with him. I'd be very impressed with his performance in his second career start. That's not to knock it whatsoever, but his next step forward might be better to wait a little bit for his long-term success. Let's go to our second topic on the big board this week on It's Official. There was no rest for Nest. They had talked about maybe training up from Saratoga to the Breeders' Cup Distaff, but they decided to go run in the Beldame this past weekend instead and get her out of the stall, and she did the rest.
Now they're coming for the top of the stretch. It is Nest on the outside. And down at the rail, Travel Column. First to act is being asked for more, and in third. It's Nest out in the middle of the track here with the lead, with 3/16 to the finish. Now Nest has opened up on the field. It is Nest in front, quickly drawing away here to lead by 6 or 7 lengths. First to act is in second. Here is Nest, and the 3-year-old filly is at the top of her game right now. She easily wins this Grade 2 Beldame Stakes. Nest won by 8 lengths.
Jeff, there was no doubt about this one when the entries came out. I mean, she was a standout in a short field. We knew Nest would dominate this race. But this was what you'd like to see moving towards the Breeders' Cup. Not only was it an easy win, but she looked good doing it. She ran through the wire nicely. This is what you want out of a prep. This was a true prep, and she got it. Yeah,
this is a perfect prep. See, you compare that to what the 2-year-olds had to go through. This is what you want to see, because it took her over with a nice, easy win. Forget about the money. It's not important. You just want to see how best to bring her up to the Breeders' Cup Distaff, which is what you're looking for. And this was the perfect prep. She got enough out of the race over a very deep track, but she wasn't knocked about. Did it easy, won by almost 10, or in a 101 Beyer number. This is a perfect race for Nest. She's been quite the mare. I mean, and here's the thing, quite the filly, because she's been going at it now I mean, she's never had a break, a training break since her 2-year-old season. She's won 7 races this year, but her first start of the year was in February down at Tampa Bay. So, I mean, she's never missed a beat. They've announced, or at least the owner did, that, and it makes sense to me that she's going to run as a 4-year-old.
Yeah,
because by then I'm pretty sure she'll be able to compete with the older boys. She's already done that, at least with the 3-year-olds. And this is a filly who's going to be in contention to run with some tremendous purses next year against them. So, no, I mean, I don't think you could manage her any better than they have. And I expect her to be incredibly tough to beat in the distaff and the favorite as well. I think that this is a daughter of Curlin. She's supposed to get better with age. She's going to get better with age. She's going to be marvelous next year.
Walking around the Todd Pletcher shed row now is kind of like Thanksgiving at the Curry house, right? I mean, you got Seth, who's a great NBA player, but you have Steph too. And Seth and Steph are stepping aside here in our comparison because Nest's stablemate Malathaat looked equally impressive in winning the Spinster Stakes.
Stretch. Malathaat coming after Latruska. Army Wife tries to join them from the far outside. Malathaat, the leader. Malathaat takes the lead, has it by 2, coming to the 8th pole. Army Wife second. Latruska drops back in 3rd. Played hard is 4th. Malathaat, final furlong of the Juddmonte Spinster, has the advantage out to nearly 5 lengths, 16th to go. Army Wife is second. No catching. Malathaat winning the Juddmonte Spinster for John Velasquez.
3rd major win at Keeneland. She won the Ashland. She won the Double Dog there, and now she has won the Spinster Stakes. I think that's like Take Charge Lady category and not many others in the history of Keeneland. I mean, it's quite an impressive resume locally for Malathaat. We know she takes her game nationally. She's a Kentucky Oaks winner. She's run big ones at Saratoga in Graded Company. But is she Seth or is she Steph in this comparison? Because we've got to compare her directly to Nest. Which one gets the Steph role?
I think at this stage, I'm going to go with the younger one, Nest over Malathaat. Although it's hard to find holes in Malathaat. I mean, she's perfect at Keeneland now, 3 for 3. She's won 9 out of 13 overall. She's now won 2 in a row and back in good form for Todd. And but in visually speaking, I mean, I've always been a big Malathaat fan, obviously, and I like her as well. But I think in Nest, if you had to compare them the two, I think Nest, the tiebreaker for me really is the turn of foot that I think Nest has over Malathaat. Malathaat's kind of a grinder. I mean, she just kind of grinds away, and she is, even though they don't run them anymore, she's a true 1.25 mile type horse for filly and mare. But the race is 1.1 miles, and at Keeneland, you're going to have to be able to explode somewhere along the way. And while Malathaat's good enough to win anyway, that's the one edge I think her younger stablemate has. So as of now, and I'll watch them train as everybody else will leading up to the race, I'd have to give Nest the edge.
And Nest was dynamite over this track in the Ashland in the spring at Keeneland. So as much as you want to say horse for course might be an equalizer because Malathaat's won 3 majors there at Keeneland, Nest looked pretty damn good the one time she showed up there as well. So, and the one thing about Nest that I like now, different than back then even, she is a lot more pace present now than she was back then. She can sit second, she can sit third now. She's not a closer. And man, when you can sit first over, second over in any horse race, you're just that much more dangerous, right? The tactics change and there's less excuses and reasons to get you beat. Nest is improving in that. She's becoming more tactical than she was earlier this year. And it's dangerous that she's adding things to her game.
Well, not only that, but because she is like Malathaat, a daughter of Curlin, she's younger, but she also has that more room to get better, as the Curlins will do when they get older. So we've seen Malathaat. I don't think she's getting any better or any worse. She's still terrific. But we don't know what the ceiling is with Nest. And every time she seems to run, she seems to win easier and more impressively and run faster and do everything that you'd expect a tremendous filly would do being by Curlin. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I think these are the two. I was kind of disappointed in Latruska. I thought maybe she would maybe not win but bounce back. But She had her chance, and she's, now at age 6, I think she kind of wants to go home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The others are good, but they were not in Malathaat's class, and we'll see. I mean, there's a few waiting in the wings for sure. It's not going to be just a 2-horse race, but right now, Nest is where you want to be, I think.
The wild card in the division is Society, the speedy wire-to-wire winner, the cotillion for Steve Ashley. So we don't know how good she is, but her last was fantastic, and she'd probably be in front of both of these fillies for part of the distaff. So that would be the X factor. And to complete our Curry analogy, I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. They're both by Curlin. Yeah. Curlin playing the role of Del Curry here, I guess. In this one, right?
Yes, I saw Del Curry play when he played, and I saw Curlin when he ran, so I can relate.
Let's go to topic 3 on the big board this week, and the horses at Keeneland in the Turf Mile, the Coolmore Turf Mile on Saturday. They got torpedoed by Annapolis. It was a naval invasion. Let's go back and take a look.
It is Mason on top. Mason leading a tone by a length and a half. Annapolis third toward the inside. Then a gap of 2 to Order of Australia in the 4th position. Starts looking for more running room. Casa Creed winding up down the center of the course. Here's Annapolis looking for room. Mason still has the lead. Here comes Annapolis. Order of Australia is right there. Casa Creed on the far outside. Hatone drops back. Annapolis puts ahead in front. Order of Australia. Ivar is running late. It is Annapolis with the lead. Order of Australia. Ivar is there. It is Annapolis in front. It is Annapolis to win.
Indianapolis. Now we just got to find the stadium.
You just say Indianapolis?
The Final Four. Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Indianapolis.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. You do know we're in the Maryland, right? Indianapolis is in the Indiana.
I had to do it, Jeff, because since the minute the entries came out, and like that Indianapolis commercial just kind of was in my head. I've been saying it all weekend. Capital One, courtesy, of course, their commercial there that was so big around the Final Four. But just Charles just saying "uh-oh." That was like classic one line in there, and Annapolis was in their zone on Saturday at Keeneland, and everybody else was saying "uh-oh."
I wonder if the guy who came up with that commercial in the public relations company, whoever they hired to, got a raise for that one, because
that was outstanding.
That was memorable, and Annapolis is trying to be memorable. That is the colt by Warfront, aptly named. He's now won 5 out of 7, and the firmer the ground, the better he is. That's how I look at him, and I think Todd Pletcher would probably agree with that. He had won the Saranac against 3-year-olds at Saratoga, ran very well that day. Easy kind of stroll in the park. He was 15 cents in the dollar. But this was the first time he handled legitimate older horses. Maybe not the best, but good enough. I mean, you run against horses like Ivar, who had been second to Modern Games up in Canada, and you're taking on the older horses, and Casa Creed, who's a very hard-knocking, very good horse, and a few others in here that have won some big races. And you do to them the way Annapolis did it, and he did it with a stalking trip, which tells me that he can win from anywhere.
Right
now, you have to take him pretty seriously. As long as there's no rain in a month, I think Annapolis has a chance to run extremely well in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Whether or not he's good enough for Modern Games, to beat Modern Games or to challenge him, that'll be part of the discussion. But he's getting better at the right time for Pletcher, and I think Annapolis is outstanding.
It's been a while since we've seen a 3-year-old colt from the U.S. win the Breeders' Cup Mile. You're going back to horses like War Chant. This is not Lure back in the early 90s. So it's been a while. I think War Chant was 2000 at Churchill. It's been over 20 years since a 3-year-old colt in the U.S. Won the Breeders' Cup Mile. And Pletcher, he's known for a lot of things in horse racing and win a lot of races, but his record in the Breeders' Cup Mile, 0 for 10, and his best finish 4th. 8 of the 10 horses finished 6th or worse. I know I bet a couple of them over the years of the Pletcher horses in the Breeders' Cup Mile. This one seems to be a little bit different. This one's really got ceiling, right? I mean, he's on the rise. He's just 3 lengths away from a perfect record. He's 7 wins. He's got 5 wins and 7 starts. His 2 losses. The margins only add up to 3 lengths. So he's 3 lengths away from perfection. This is one of the better horses Todd would be bringing to the Breeders' Cup Mile. You can be sure over the course of his career. We'll see what the Europeans have to bring, Jeff. But I don't know. I mean, is Blowout now the top Breeders' Cup mile hope among the colts and geldings in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think so. And really, in handicapping this race, I thought Ivar would run well. I thought Casa Creed would run well, knowing that they are definitely less than what the Euros can bring. And if Annapolis is going to be the best of the U.S. group, which I think now you have to say that he probably is, it still doesn't mean he can beat Modern Games, But but on the other hand, and they're both 3-year-olds, so they're both have room to improve. But Annapolis has got kind of like the home court advantage if there is one. So I think he's going to run really well. I love this style where he always puts himself in the race. Now he's giving you that second move at the top of the stretch to the wire. And if for whatever reason Modern Games or whoever the Euros bring for this race don't bring their A game, then Annapolis has got a chance. And again, he's going to have to step forward. He earned a 101 buyer number. It's the first triple-digit buyer number that he's earned now in 7 starts. So he's still not there, but at least he's getting there, and that's the main thing. And so we'll see. It's a good colt, and he'll get it. He'll have his backers certainly next month.
Noteworthy in that Coolmore Turf Mile, the scratch of Smooth Like Straight. He's still going to train up to the Breeders' Cup now to get a minor cut that had to be treated. So, he couldn't run during that treatment, but nothing expected to really set back Smooth Like Straight other than not getting the prep here. Maybe change the outcome of that race, but he's certainly one of the leading horses from the U.S. in terms of the Breeders' Cup Mile, Smooth Like Straight. Don't want to overlook him. And my question for you, Jeff, is how in the world did Wow What a Summer at 83-1 beat this horse in the Penn National Mile?
Yeah, well, you're right about that. Soft ground. And I remember Annapolis just really struggling in that race. And then he actually got beat at Saratoga where it was listed as firm, but it was a little given the ground there as well. So, that
was at least Nation's Pride, that was legit. And it was a little bit
right, exactly. That was legit. But I also think Annapolis is a miler. I think, he can run farther, but a mile on fast, firm, top of the ground, as they say, that's where it'll bring out his best. If this race were run, for example, at Santa Anita this year, where moderate horses are running a mile and 32 and change, then I think Annapolis would have a reasonable chance, or a better chance anyway, to beat Modern Games. But I'm not sure what kind of ground he's going to get at Keeneland. But he ran a mile and 33-1, so I'm not sure how much faster you can get than that on ground, but we'll see what happens if the weatherman cooperates and Annapolis got a shot.
And we know Annapolis can win in the Kentucky, and that's what matters because that's where they're headed back for the Breeders' Cup. Fourth topic on the big board this week on It's Official, Towing with the Boys. Trainer Bill Mott said, let's take on the Joe Hurst Turf Classic with his big filly Warlike Goddess, and she responded in kind.
And now Warlike Goddess begins to pick it up from third. She's moving up on the outside. Adamo is down at the rail in fourth. Then Rock Emperor, Soldier Rising. Gufo is the trailer. The field is in the stretch. Here is Warlike Goddess coming up to challenge Astronaut and Bye Bye Melvin. Soldier Rising advances down at the rail. And then it is Rock Emperor. And the field is coming to the finish here with Warlike Goddess. And she's going to beat the boys today in this Grade 1 Joe Hurst Turf Classic. And she won it by 3 lengths.
No problems there for Warlike Goddess, Jeff. When she's on, she's on. And for a 1.5 mile horse, she's got a nice turn of foot. She almost runs like a turf miler, but she's got the stamina. She could just pick it up when she needs to. And most times those marathoners don't have an accelerator, but she's got one.
Well, the really top class ones do. And Warlike Goddess is obviously top class runner. She's now won 9 out of 12 career races with only 1 second and 1/3, which means she usually will get there. And she's either going to win. I mean, she's going to win. She'll find a way. Now, she could not find a way in the Flower Bowl when at 20 cents on the dollar in her last start, she was upset by Virginia Joy in a race in which Joel Rosario was really overconfident and gave her way too much to do. And I was interested to see what the comment for that race was. Firm hold too late. Yeah, that's what got her beat. And I think that's one of the reasons why Mott went to Lascano here after Joelle had ridden her in her last 3 races. But the other thing about Warlike Goddess is now she beat the boys. This is not a stellar group of horses. I mean, Gufo is up and down, and the rest of them are second quality type horses. She's going to run in the Breeders' Cup turf now against the Euros, which will be decidedly more competitive than the group that she just beat. But she doesn't really have an option, Jeremy, because I guess she does have an option, but the Philly and Mare turf this year, because of the configuration of the course, is 1 mile and 3/16. It's more of a middle distance race, more of a race like for an Italian type horses. And I think what Mott is thinking is, I'd rather run against the boys at her distance, 1.5 miles, than some of these really good older mares at 1 mile and 3/16, where maybe they have a turn of foot that can equal or even better what she has. So we'll see her against the boys again.
Yeah, no U.S.-based filly or mare has won the Breeders' Cup turf to date. There have been some Europeans do it, most recently Enable, Found, and then Backaway's Misalleged and Pebbles. So some greats have done it. There's been some success with the Distaffers at the 1.5 mile turf on Breeders' Cup Day, but not from the American side. This would be quite a step forward to go from the filly and mare turf division domestically to take on the world in the open turf division. But if we've had one capable of doing it in recent years, she seems like the one that is equipped for the distance, and that is certainly going to play to her favor. That is Warlike Goddess getting ready for perhaps a big historic date in the Breeders' Cup turf. Let's go to our final topic. 5th and final topic is our Stars of Tomorrow, as we do each week here on the show. We're spotlighting young horses coming out of the maiden ranks in many cases, and ones you want to look at moving forward. We told you Bob Baffert ran 1, 2, 3, 4 in the American Pharoah on Saturday. Then he just unleashed another superstar in the maiden ranks. Here is one named Arabian Lion, a colt by Justify.
They turn for home, and Arabian Lion opens up 1.5 lengths. Elwood Blues chasing with determination. The 2 Justifies are dominating. It's Arabian Lion by 2 at the 16th pole, and he opens up now. Arabian Lion in a sparkling debut. Strides out to win by 3.
Ran away there from Elwood Blues, made him look like Jake. And Jeff, certainly a big performance there. Baffert's got himself another big one with Arabian Lion.
These 2 colts had worked together, and Arabian Lion did to Elwood Blues in the race what he had done in the workout. But they're both good colts. Fast race over a dead track, 109 and change. And colt by Justify. Interesting about Justify, he brought a lot of money, obviously, in the sale, and $600,000 into 2-year-old training sale. He breezed really well. But if you look at his pedigree, you'll find that he doesn't have any stakes winners in the first 2 generations of his pedigree, which tells me that he must have been, and obviously is, an incredibly good-looking colt, and it breezed so well. The dam was stakes placed in Japan, but also ran out here in the States. Second dam, she was by Distorted Humor. Second dam by AP Indy, produced a couple of stakes placed horses. Nothing great there. But the third dam, now you talk about going back a ways.
Sure.
Third dam is Personal Ensign. I think we've heard of her. So I think that's the class in the dam traces to Personal Ensign, who was not only one of the great racehorses of my lifetime, but one of the great producing mares as well. And Justify is done so well in so far in his first crop. This colt's a May foal, so he's got a lot of developing to doing, which tells me that one of the reasons why Bob took his time with him, I think, is because he is a late foal, and definitely going to go longer. So when the dust settles, I wouldn't be surprised if Arabian Lion is right up there with the best that he's got. And the way he won his first time out, he basically ran like he worked, which was terrific.
You would think maybe Del Mar's got to believe the Bob Hope, it's called, the sprint for the 2-year-olds, coming up November meet, something like that would probably fit this one. You're not in a hurry to stretch out yet. The Santa Anita Derby series gives you a million chances to stretch a horse out. You can go a mile from January on. If they want to run this horse again this year, Arabian Lion, Bob Hope might be a good spot.
Well, or the Los Alamitos Futurity, which
Los Futurity, right?
Which is in December. I don't think it's a grade 1 anymore. I could be wrong about that. I have to look it up. But either way, you get them started now. There's no pressure, really. I mean, the races will be there whenever he's ready. There'll be a race for him. Right. And so anyway, he's a And our stars of tomorrow have been pretty salty of late. I mean, and they're not that difficult to find, but I mean, they're out there, and we try to find them. And this colt was an easy one to isolate.
Certainly go back in the YouTube pages for Express Bet and look at our past editions of It's Official. If you want to go back and see who our stars of tomorrow we've been spotlighting throughout the course of the summer, because maybe you'll catch some of those down the line. But we've got a nice little library of them now that we started just before the Saratoga and Del Mar meets and have run continuously through. That's going to wrap up our 5 topics this week. Each week we have a bonus topic that we like to throw in. Usually it's something irreverent, but since we already heard from Chuck and Samuel and Spike earlier in the show, let's be serious about this bonus topic here, Jeff. Let's talk Breeders' Cup favorites. And I looked at oddschecker.com, the website that takes all the European bookmakers and puts them together. And here are the favorites for the 14 divisions of the Breeders' Cup races as they're being bet in international markets right now. So this is based on the odds from oddschecker.com. Any place where you might see on Friday, Jeff? Any disputes there? I mean, Cave Rock, Chocolate Gelato favorite, the Frizette winner in the betting right now. Blackbeard from Ireland. You've got Silver Knot, I believe, is that's another one of those Charlie Appleby's, right? Silver Knot. And then Blues Rose Sen from France looked really good in the Juvenile Fillies Turf division and is being bet in the overseas market. Anything on Friday stand out to you?
No, really. I think the Juvenile Fillies I wasn't impressed with what I saw out here in the Chandelier. So I guess Chocolate Gelato will probably be the favorite there. I don't think she's Echo Zulu or anything like that, but she's good. I mean, good enough to be the favorite. I'm not that familiar yet with the Euros. I want to see who's entered first to see, and then there's plenty of information out there once they get the pre-enters done. It's not like before where, I mean, you can look at any video. They're easy to, they're pretty easy to quantify. So
I watched Blue Rose Sen last night, actually, when I was putting this list together and to familiarize myself. And you're going to like what you see on video on her last race.
Okay,
she was really
sharp.
She was sharp. She was sharp pulling away.
Yeah. So I don't have any problem with Friday. Now, Saturday, there's a couple in there that I respect, but may try to beat gambling-wise. So we can talk about that, too, as well as we look at the likely favorites in some very competitive races on Saturday.
I'm curious if Jack Christopher goes in the dirt mile. I mean, he's favored in the dirt mile right now, or if they would just sprint him. I think Jackie's Warrior's not scaring anybody off this year, I don't think. I think that's going to be hey, he may be vulnerable. Let's try to beat him. And, of course, the purse in the sprint is double that of the dirt mile. So I wouldn't be surprised if I still think the dirt mile is going to turn out to be one of those in-betweener races, that it's not going to be of high class this year. It's going to be a lot of like second tier 3-year-olds. We talked about rattle and roll and horses like that. I think that's what we're going to end up with in dirt mile this year. And of course the big Baffert horse, right? With Laurel River.
Yeah, that's Laurel River. And you can see his recent work a couple of days ago on xbtv.com if you want to judge and what kind of shape he is in. And he is in good shape. I'll say that. No, that's the horse that I like, Laurel River. If I were the connections of Jack Christopher, I would absolutely consider the sprint. I don't think you have one horse to beat there, and I'm not sure he could beat Laurel River. I mean, I just don't. Around 2 turns. Now, if it's a 1-turn race, maybe, but Laurel River is actually better around 2 turns. I'm not sure Jack Christopher is, and Laurel River is incredibly fast. He won that race at Del Mar, the sprint of Pat O'Brien, just like a monster, and he had done that before. So, and then Golden Pal, and I'm curious to see what you think of Golden Pal. He won the prep last week at Keeneland. He looked like his old self. But given the trip that he had, I kind of thought maybe he lost a little bit of his steam in the final stages. The field kind of came together. Where are you at it with Golden Pal?
Well, let's go back and take a look at that race because we do have it queued up. And I'll tell you afterwards because we can compare his prep last year in the Woodford to this year's Woodford.
Golden Pal leads it by a length. Gear Jockey second a length. Artima City Limits third by 2 lengths. Bad Beat Bryant is in 4th position. Oceanic has to go wide, nearly 10 from the front, back in 5th. They turn for home. Golden Pal the leader. Golden Pal leading Gear Jockey, leads it by 3 lengths. And then Artima City Limits is third. Charcoal is 4th down toward the inside. Bad Beat Bryant next toward the outside. They're all behind Golden Pal. Golden Pal a 3-length lead, final 16th. Golden Pal in front. Late charge from Artima City Limits. Golden Pal wins it. Close for second. Either Oceanic with a late run down the outside or Artima City Limits.
Jeff, I know it's a turf sprint. It's 5.5 furlongs. The gallop out is kind of silly to talk about, but he did not look like he had the same starch left at the end of that race, either to the wire or in the gallop out, that he had last year when he won the exact same race. And last year he had better form going into it than, say, this year when he was, unprepared at the start in Ascot and then came back and just barely got the job done at Saratoga when working hard for it. I don't think he's as good as he was last year. And what we saw on Breeders' Cup Day at Del Mar was one of the most phenomenal out of the starting gates you're ever going to see. Can you possibly catch the flyer that good again to exact that kind of edge right off the jump? I don't think so. So to me, I think Golden Pal is vulnerable going into this year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Question is, do you find somebody else, right? I mean, is it a European? They're usually not great in this race, but they've had some success. Do you try to find somebody else from the U.S.? Let's just see. This one's going to be a handicap on paper. It's not going to be a Breeders' Cup division where I just say it's Golden Pal and we'll move on. I think we need to handicap it this year.
Yeah, I think so. And unfortunately, then the horse that I think would have won the race, and I was preparing to be very aggressive with that, Lieutenant Dan, is not going to run. He was so impressive at Del Mar in his comeback, and they were going to use that race as a springboard to this. And he came up with another issue in the interim, so he stopped on. And I don't know, if and when we'll ever see him, but that would have been the kind of horse that I would have tried to beat Golden Bell, because he almost beat him last year. Not almost, but that was at 5.
You got to bring it up again. This is like the third time.
Oh yeah, I know. I always take the opportunity to do that.
There are gambling defeats that I just want to forget about and bury in the hole, and you just rip the wound off on.
I know.
On
That's a late hit. Okay, that's a late.
Next, you're going to tell me they should have left maximum security up, right? Is that what you're going to do to me? I mean, is that the kind of pain you're going to inflict on me?
We'll get into that someday too. Anyway, so again, you're right about the Euros not necessarily being, doing all that well in this race, and of course the Prix de la Baie on Arc Day was won by a 2-year-old filly. So
that's right.
I'm not sure what they have to send over.
That's a good point. Very good point.
And nothing in California. I mean, John Sadler's got a horse named Ram who I like, but he's in good form. He won a good race at Kentucky Downs. I would give him a little bit of a look among the California turf sprinters. But that's going to be a race that it's going to be tough, because neither one of us really want to bet on Golden Pal.
Right.
And yet, could you say he couldn't win it? No,
I mean, he could win it, sure, but I think it's time to fish a little bit. Make sure you have your license, get the bobber in the water, and try to find something for this one, because I think this turf sprint is one that could be for the taking. Anything else there? Modern Games. I know you're very high on Modern Games, and Rebels Romance is the favorite in the turf right now. You've been talking about this horse for about a month or two on our various podcasts. Rebels Romance, the horse.
I know my German form. I will say that. I mean, I claim to be the best German handicapper, and I don't know, at least in Arcadia, if nothing else. But he's coming, and there they are, right there. I want to see how Jackie's Warrior trains before I jump on that bandwagon. Yeah. I'll do more research on the Euros when the entries and the pre-entries come out. Goodnight Olive is a really, really good filly, but that is a very contentious race, the Filly Mare Sprint, so I'll have to do some work there. I'm pretty much not going to spend a whole lot of time on the Classic. Flightline, because I see him because I got horses with John. I can't tell you how well he's doing. He's training well. He looks great. He's like looking for anything that can challenge him, and I'm just not seeing it. I mean, and he's working, like I say, he's working out here better, if you can believe this, than he worked prior to the Pacific Classic. So what does that tell you?
They're running for second. That's what it tells me.
I think so,
Which ain't bad in a $6 million race.
No.
And, we've got Epicenter and the division of 3-year-olds.
and that group, So.
Yeah. So we might get the Derby winner in there as well, Rich Strike. So it'll be a fun Breeders' Cup Classic. The gang will be there, if you will, but it could be a coronation to a Flightline if he runs back to his best races. That's kind of what we're expecting to see. But we've got time to figure that out. A couple more weeks yet to the Breeders' Cup. 3 weeks away now. We're a little over 2 weeks away. I think it's 17 days. I got scared and looked at the calendar today. For the Breeders' Cup Wager Guide will be ready from Express Bet and First Bet in 17 days. So pod get to work. There's a lot of work that we need to do in getting that digital wager guide up and ready to go. And of course, follow your picks for Santa Anita, daily analysis at First Bet and Express Bet. And XBTV is going to have a tremendous amount of workouts from the West Coast. We'll get a lot of workouts from Keeneland and the Breeders' Cup news feed to analyze. I would imagine that our next few weeks, you and I are going to be able to share a lot of video and comments about how horses are training up to the Breeders' Cup, which can be a big help to some bettors out there who aren't necessarily visual handicappers.
Well, and the other thing is, we might concede that Flightline will win the Classic, but there are those who like to play exactas and tries and supers, and we can concentrate on horses that we can say not going to win, but he might run second or third and make this whole thing worthwhile. So you have to watch those horses as well, and we will be paying special attention to some of the long shots that could make those kind of wagers worthwhile to the gambler, rather than just concede that, Flightline's going to win at 1-5. I can't play the race. Well, maybe you can, and then maybe you can do something and maybe beat a favorite or beat a second choice. Get a long shot in there. There's always ways to make money. So that's what we'll be doing the next few weeks, and it'll be fun leading up to what promises to be an incredible day of racing at Keeneland.
We'll enjoy all the live action at the first racetracks around the country. Live racing right now at Santa Anita. We've got action at Gulfstream Park and at the Maryland Jockey Club as well. Golden Gate will be back in a little bit after a Northern California fair swing right now. So a lot of great racing action between now and the Breeders' Cup. Of course, Keeneland running as well. On behalf of everybody with First Technologies, my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. We'll talk to you on Friday when we have our weekend preview of the stakes handicapping. Our podcast on Friday will be with you to take a look at this weekend's racing. Good luck, everybody.